Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight on the Crimson News Network, your most untrustworthy, most biased, most opinionated news source of all time. We're going to be talking about quite a few things. Probably one of the bigger nights that I have. And I have this basically divided into 5 different groups of information that I'm going to have to, go over for the night. But basically, it breaks down to, the usual manga and anime coverage, talking about some of the new stuff that we're going to be looking at. Just some like random things that have come out. I should have organized this better so that all of the manga and stuff that I have come across shows up first. There we go. And then, of course, we have Frieren Discourse. Again, we are doing Frieren Discourse again. Because that's a thing. Everyone's back at it. Then there is the segment about how apparently Japan hates women. We'll get to that. That'll probably be later in the night. And then we have the world's most astroturfed manga ever. That has caused a bunch of stuff. And then miscellaneous things, some articles and stuff that I wanted to go over. Hello to you, Marcel. Hope you're doing well. But effectively, it's a busy night. So why don't we just roll right into it and start talking about some of the new manga and anime that are out there. So let's do that. Here we go. Bring this up so that y'all can see it. So this is the first thing on the agenda for tonight. And I've actually read a little bit of this one. It's a very cute little romance manga. Tomboy Rom-Com Boyish Girlfriend by Gyunyu Mugi Gohan. So I have no idea exactly what this means, but I do know that Gyunyu means milk and Gohan can either mean rice or meal. So yeah. Anyway, has 300,000 copies in circulation for volumes 1 through 3. So that's pretty good. Volume 4 will be out in November 2025. Special edition with extra 32-page booklet will be available too. It is a rom-com about a tsundere tomboy high school girl who starts dating her male childhood friend. He thinks she is cute no matter what, but she is reluctant to show him her more feminine side. English release on Manga Up. So this is the one I wanted to show off since it came across my feed. I have read a few chapters of this, and I think it's a nice little, enjoyable series. It's something that I think is genuinely fun. And I wanted to recommend it tonight because it came across my feed. That's an anime announcement. I should have paid a little bit more attention to that. So we'll go with this one next. The next one on the list is a dark fantasy called Blade and Bastard by Kagyo Kumo of Goblin Slayer and Sobin from Overlord. And it has 600,000 copies in circulation for the light novel, manga, and digital. The anime adaptation has been announced. Dark fantasy about a dead man resurrected. I don't know why I struggled with that word. Without memories, who's spending his days recovering the corpses of adventurers in a dungeon until he meets a female swordsman who is the sole survivor of her party. So the English light novel is on J Novel Club, and the English manga release is through Yen Press. So this might be something that is pretty worth checking out. I mean, I like the art style of it, and I respect the writing of Overlord enough to be like, this is perhaps a very worthwhile thing to pick up. So we shall see where it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Next one is another dark fantasy anime, or so it says. So, new dark fantasy Witch Riv by One Room of Happiness creator Hakari starts on Jump Plus today. And I actually didn't get a chance to read this, unfortunately, so I can't give you any reviews of it. However, I will try to remember it for animated on Saturday. So, given that this is on Manga Plus, I should be able to just go over right now and check this one out. Yeah, Witch Riv is right here. And I can look into it in a little bit. I will report back on this one. So, dark fantasy set in a world where magic exists, but only a few people can use it. They are hunted down by an oppressive government and have to hide their powers to survive. One of them is a young girl who lives a quiet life with her witch mom, but one tragic day their secret is revealed and has cruel consequences. The issue I have with this is it kind of reminds me a bit of Kingdoms of Ruin, and Kingdoms of Ruin turned out to be shit. So we will see how this goes, but I kind of like the art style and the concept behind it. So who knows? Perhaps this one turns out to be good. So we will see. I'm going to keep all of these up because I do want to, well, most of them up because I do want to check out some of those later and put tabs on them so I can keep track of them. Unlike this one, I figured that if if I'm going to cater to an audience of degens, I might as well cater to an audience of degens. So here we have the wild one for the night. Semen drinking curse romance drama Gokuri by Maihara Takeru has 250,000 copies in circulation for volumes 1 through 5. A twisted romance about a former high school student who accidentally curses his already taken crush. The girl was forced to regularly swallow his semen or suffer and die, all despite having a boyfriend. 10 years after this bizarre ordeal, the high school student is now a working adult and struggling in a sexless marriage with another woman. Just as he wants to come clean with his feelings, he has an unexpected reunion. So again, what the actual fuck are we talking about here? But there's probably, I mean, apparently there are 250,000 people who are into this. Same with the next one for you, Degens, although this one's a little bit easier on the priestess's sex teacher arrow fantasy, the sacred virgins and the secret ... by volume 7 by Hirameki Bonjin. The series has 400,000 copies in circulation for volumes 1 through 7. Lewd fantasy about a young man who's watching porn and playing sex games in his spare time, getting transported to a fantasy world. This kind of sounds a little bit more like a more lewd version of Tales of Wedding Rings. You sure this isn't a hentai plot? Anyway, I'm in. So anyway, he's summoned by a goddess who rules over a city where men are forbidden. She asks him to use his copious amounts of adult entertainment experience to become a sex teacher for the 4 priestesses. Why would you be reluctant at first? They agree to receive his guidance. First assignment, making one of them come. I only bring the toppest of notch manga and anime to the table, okay? Holy yeah, okay, so that brings us to the anime announcements, the couple that have come up this week. And this is, one of them. Another sort of like rom-com slice of life thing. So, TV anime adaptation for Morishita's rom-com supernatural manga, uh, Tsumiki Ogami's Not So Ordinary Life. In a world fantastical beings coexist with humans, an awkward high school boy meets Tsumiki Ogami, a little not ordinary lovable werewolf. So basically you just have a chick with ears and a tail. At least from everything that I've seen of this one. So we can send this to the furries of the group and not have to dirty our hands a little bit anymore. Anyway, here's the big ones as far as announcements go, though, and that would be the official announcement of season 3 of the Apothecary Diaries. And now this is big news because it's not just the announcement of season 3, it's also the announcement of an Apothecary Diaries movie. I'll say that again, an Apothecary Diaries movie. So, from everything that I have seen thus far, this one is going to be sort of split in a very specific way. You're going to have two cours. So, one in fall of this year, of 2026, that'll be next year, sorry. And then in December, after the core is over, you get the movie. And apparently, it is a completely new story by the light novel author. And then the second core of season 3. So 2026 to 2027 has Apothecary Diaries fans eating good. This is really, really good news for everyone. I mean, we pretty much knew it was going to get a season 3, considering how successful it has been as an anime. But I was just wondering how they were going to go, when they were going to announce it. It's also surprising to me that they're doing a movie. That's the really cool part of this, especially if it's going to be a completely original thing. I'm wondering if they're going to make it canon or if it's just something that they want to do. But to me, the best news of all to come out lately is this one. Season 3 of TV anime The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You is currently in development. And there was, of course, official announcements about this. So we are going to get some of my favorite characters in the series with season 3, particularly Natty and Momiji. And still no Banjoji Sensei, but that's going to have to wait. Either way, peak returns. Peak returns. So we get Apothecary Diaries and 100 Girlfriends announced in the same week. Absolute fantastic news. I love it. Yeah, love to see it. Nice, some new milfs. Not a milf, but definitely definitely an adult chick. I mean, Natty's an adult. I don't want to spoil it too much, but she probably wears some of the most revealing clothes in the entire crew. Um, and then Moby G, I honestly, there's no other way to describe her than she just. I'll leave you with the. Uh, the ambiguousness as to what that means. Either way, like I'm looking forward to both of these. Season 3 of Apothecary Diaries is going to be very, very good. I am really excited about that. And season 3 of 100 Girlfriends is just, that's going to slap too. We're getting really, really good stuff coming back. That said, though, we got a couple of things to talk about. The big thing on the list. Oh, something came today that is entirely relevant to what we're about to talk about. We officially have a Freerin plush, boys, because we're talking about Freerin discourse again. It's flaring up, and well, we are going to address it. So this is basically where it starts. I believe I was sent this video by the questioners. I haven't watched it yet, but Master Samwise posted this video, and it was basically modern storytelling has a villain problem. It doesn't want to make them evil. And that, of course, brings us, straight back to the fucking insanity that is Freeren's discourse. Freeren fans who only know a demon bad meme and nothing else in the story versus Himmel fans. And this is only the start because things very quickly spiral out of control from this point on. We get to a little bit of the stupid stuff. Oh, I guess we'll start here. And we'll just work our way back. That saves me a lot of time. So this is where we get a response. So there was another post here that was ultimately deleted, and I forget exactly how it goes, but it was effectively saying that a lot of people watch Freerin because they get kicks out of racism. That's what it was saying. So we have this response of correction, it's Western Freerin haters. They are the ones who equated literal demons with real people to throw shade at it. Completely unprompted and out of the blue, by the way. And of course, we do have the receipts of this fucking douche nugget, who, by the way, has me blocked. I don't know what I did. I might have interacted with this dude like once, like 2.5 years ago. And I'm blocked. Or whenever the hell the Freerin discourse was taking place. And then we have, we can keep going on. So the entire demon arc was literally just showing that demons are monsters that lie and take advantage of other races. Empathy. Demons are monsters that lie and take advantage of other races. Empathy. We have to exterminate them, especially the children. Yeah, basically implying that it's all racism. And then, of course, we have Sly Performer here with this is the post that kicked off basically the entire Freerin discourse. This is the one that went viral and got everyone talking about this shit because this line went hard, but not gonna lie, I'll never forget Freerin for this. Like, I get it, all demons are evil, yada yada, but this is an unbreakable spell where she can make her do anything. She could have helped society as a whole, but instead she murdered her because she hates their kind. Well, yeah, a lot of people love to compare orcs in anything to people of color for some reason. It's very disturbing to me that it happens, whether it's D&D or whether it is Lord of the Rings or anything. And we'll get a little bit into this argument because I had someone respond to me in some of my posts today talking about biological determinism and everything. And we're going to get into that whole argument here in a bit. But there's a 0% chance this was the optimal way to handle this. So effectively, the whole point here, the whole rebuttal to this is there's literally a whole thing in the story about how because demons are they have like a completely different understanding of things than humans. Normal conventional human logic with spells doesn't exactly work well on them. So if you remember with Frieren, magic is framed by basically by the user's own mental or the user's own beliefs. Okay. So, or well, what the user believes is possible, i.e., why Ubel was able to cut something that was supposedly immune to all spells. The indestructible cloak. The issue is we have a magic item later in the series that is used when it comes to like this particular issue. And the demon it is used on finds a way around it because he doesn't understand the concept of what harming someone is. That's how magic works in Frieren. With someone as powerful as Aura, especially, and this is like just reducing it to she hates her kind. You see all those bodies behind Aura? Those are all people she has murdered. She has killed them and held their corpses hostage. Anyway, she was also one of the sages of destruction. So there's that. She was part of the Demon King's army, probably helped commit a lot of atrocities. Aura is guilty as fuck, and if she were a human, she basically would have been tried at the Hague and then hanged. Either way, that was the post that kicked off all the Frieren discourse because nobody had really thought about like equating Frieren to racism up until that point. And because that was the post that Lextorius here ultimately responded to and got a ton of flack from that prompted him to make this video. And then that catapulted everything off into, the fucking stratosphere. You could probably find a handful of retards who were doing stuff like this before, but these two, the Sly Performer and Lextorius, were the ones who really fucking kicked all this shit off, who sent it into the stratosphere. And if watching Lextorius's video, he gets a lot of things wrong, and it calls into question his whole conclusion. A lot of like the things that he builds on show that he doesn't actually fully understand what he's talking about. He doesn't have a good solid grasp of what Frieren is actually supposed to be. And is ultimately just out to sort of try and like justify his point previously. He had a conclusion that he wanted to prove. And grabbed as many examples as he could find. So we'll step back from there. So yeah, here we go again. Lextorius responding here with the fucking Sakamoto Days shit, and yeah, he has me blocked. So Frieren fans desperately wanting to attribute the demons are minorities thing to the critics so they don't have to take accountability. And it takes literally 2 seconds for them to see the fan base going Frieren is racist, and that's awesome. While the show was still airing. Random joke. Again, random joke. Random joke. Oh, wait, 2024? 2024? 2023? 2023. When did... I'm curious. Am I just mistaken, or did... I thought Frieren came out earlier. Okay, so yeah, it was September 2024. Or September 2020. Who's shitting on racist elf mommy? Again, Freeman has literally nothing to do with racism or anything, and I have just as much a problem with the people doing shit like this. Although when it comes to a lot of these, it kind of is just the like the jokiness of it. So here we go. And this is like this is the big thing here, where I was talking about Lex wanted to like had a point he wanted to prove. So like, did this guy just compare the victims of Mustache Man with literal conceptual demons? So this is his response to Sly Performer. That again, he was trying to back up. So Freeman is such a funny show. It asks the audience to question the morality of the demons so many times it feels obvious that they're going to subvert it. Then pulls the rug out to start doing Gary Gygax's level of biological determinism. And just to finish this off before going any deeper into it, Freeman fans desperately want to attribute the demons are minorities thing to critics so they don't have to take accountability. You're literally the guy who compared those demons to Holocaust victims. So this is where we get to this. Someone responded to one of my retweets here. Said, so basically, I took this post from earlier, and I responded with the Freeran race discourse started with a post about how Freeran should have used Aura's spell to subjugate her. Hopefully, season 2 covers mocked, and we get to see why this is a terrible idea. People mocked it at first. Then Lixtorius made his infamous video and catapulted the BS into popular discussion. The most irritating part is that both sides are fucking wrong, both the rightoid fans and the leftist fans. How do people so wildly misinterpret such a simple piece of media? Because Freeran really is just a very simple piece of media that is telling you don't overlook a lot of the things in life, because you're going like a lot of your best memories are going to be those stupid things that you look back on. So then I had this person respond to me with I didn't engage with any of the discourse before watching it and still don't, just watching from the side right now. But at the end of the day, Freeran both the series and the character espouses biological determinism when it comes to intelligent and sentient life. We'll get to that point. And Freeran the character, who is usually the most correct one in the room, also espouses anti-coexistence ideology with the series supports through its narrative and backstory. That's political, that's ideological. Yeah. Anyway, in response, this is what I had to say. And yet, at the end of the day, the series still presents a vast world of coexisting races. You want to talk about anti-coexistence ideology? Like, you literally have multiple fantasy races living together with no problem. Two of the great heroes were a dwarf and an elf, and nobody ever mentions anything about the elves or dwarves being bad. It's only just the demons, and we'll get to more of that in a bit. And to pretend that the demons are somehow linked to a real world group of people or representative of a minority of some kind is not only questionable, it's blinded by one's own belief. Again, you want to talk about biological determinism? Sure, I think you can actually make a decent argument about that in this series. However, it really only becomes a problem when you start trying to apply it to the real world. And for those of you who aren't aware, biological determinism is the idea that someone's genetics or their lineage is going to affect them more than their environment or their upbringing. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I don't think you can completely rule out genetics. Anyway, my point is that it is perfectly fine within fiction to come up with a completely random group of beings who are just genetically evil, given that they are not supposed to be some sort of allegory for another group of people. Because that's when it becomes legitimate racism. Or what I should say is a group based on, ethnicity, race, or religion, or how have you. That's when it legitimately does become hateful. but to simply make up a random like group of entities and say that they are categorically evil, well, that's something that it has been done for all of history and is still being done to this day. And you want to know what? People don't have a problem with it in a lot of cases. And we'll get to that. People love to get caught up in trying to make the series a racial allegory and fail to understand the actual message. And then we get the reactionaries who only make things worse by using Frieren quotes either out of spite or just plain old hatred. But if you think that the narrative is about being anti coexistence, then you've inadvertently proven my point that everyone gets this series wrong. The demons are a singular part of a whole story, a tree in the forest that everyone tries to pick out and focus on. The demons are only one part of it, and once you take into the whole picture, you can clearly tell that they aren't supposed to be representative of a race or a group of people outside of a certain ideological framework or a certain mindset. The demons have a literary purpose in how they are similar to Frieren yet different. But as for biological determinism, I guess you guys don't need to see that. Insofar as something like biological determinism goes, we use this plenty in fiction. I don't see anyone complaining that Goblin Slayer basically does the same thing. Gee, I wonder why. It's almost like the ugly little rapey green shits aren't exactly something you can empathize with. Oh no, how dare you try to commit genocide against a species that is sentient, can make tools, can strategize, can think? How dare you make them out to be entirely the villains who are just pure evil? Oh no, you don't see anyone talking about that. Kind of weird. You want to know another series that nobody complains about when it comes to this stuff? Kaiju number 8. The Kaiju demonstrate perfect ability to be, to reason, to strategize. All of the numbered Kaiju, or well, at least after 8, are sentient. They're capable of strategizing, of speech, of thinking. I have no idea what you're going on about, Rolando. What the fuck are you into? Anyway, it's so weird to me that people get so caught up in like just the Frieren discourse because they become suicidally empathetic to the fact that the demons look good and they say a lot of nice things and all that and all that tripe. Hold on, what the fuck? This whole time, there's been a film over that remote. I'm retarded. Anyway, the demon said, "Mommy, feel for it." Yes. Again, they represent a certain ideological group, I guess, within the story, and they are meant to really just be an antithesis to Frieren and her whole journey. While the demons look like humans, that's probably the biggest problem. Sure. Either way, they aren't humans. And this actually gets brought up later in the series. And I'll have to double check to see exactly how it phrases it. But they present something that is effectively along the lines of convergent evolution. Which, if you don't know what convergent evolution is, it is the idea that evolution will produce similar organisms given similar stimuli. Kind of the way that the ichthyosaurus looks like a dolphin. Or kind of the same way that a lot of monkeys, or well, not necessarily. That's a different one because those are all, related. But the ichthyosaurus is a reptile, and the dolphin is a mammal. And given that they live in like very similar environments and had very similar stimuli, they evolved to look very similar. So the demons are basically referenced as, just a bit of convergent evolution. But narratively speaking, they represent something else. And trying to make this whole like biological determinism argument effect is subtly suggesting that the demons are supposed to represent some sort of real world people group. And I guess you could say they technically do, but it isn't based on race or religion or ethnicity or sexual orientation or anything like that. It's literally just the demons are incapable of enjoying life. That is what the demons are supposed to represent in this whole thing. Is they are the group of people who cannot slow down and look at life for what it is. And the small things that seem unimportant to them, they're incapable of grasping why those matter. That is the point of the demons. So just because I'm Mexican, I'm forever going to be in construction. I'm playing right into biological determinism. Oh man. Yeah, it's a ridiculous argument that ultimately boils down to why is it bad unless you are specifically trying to say that the demons are some sort of minority group. They're sociopaths, yes. Demons are effectively sociopaths. Funny enough, because I do believe sociopathy is something that can be hereditary. Either way, the whole argument is ridiculous, and everyone consistently misses what the point of Freerin is, and that is my biggest problem with all of it. Is one, you had the left people like Lex Torius and Sly Performer who decided to go on their whole it's fascism, racism, all that kind of stuff, and then completely like misinterpret things to try and suit their narrative. On the other hand, you had people on the right who then decided that they were going to go full racist with it and start using free ring quotes to start talking about, just anyone that they didn't like. Or, even if it's just as a joke, but there are legitimately people who have, used free ring for racist shit like that. And they're obnoxious too, because they keep this whole thing going. When the reality is, Freerin is just saying, hey, take some time to slow down and smell the roses. But that said, we got to get into some stuff. We have more to talk about tonight, and we're just going to keep the hype train rolling. So now we are going to talk about the single most astroturfed manga to have ever been created. It is funny to stir up the leftists, but yeah, sucks when it affects the property. It just makes everyone misconstrue what the whole story is about because it is a very wholesome, I think, a very impactful message. And I mean, look at this little thing. If you were going to say that Freerin was about racism or about like, racial supremacy or anything, why the hell would humans, elves, and dwarves all get along, but the equally human looking demons don't? It doesn't make sense once you start interpreting it from that point of view. It just doesn't make sense, and it reflects very poorly on anyone who decides to go down that route. And it just proves that the race conscious sort of mentality is fucking dumb. Anyway, like I said, there is an AstroTurf manga that we are going to get into. So here we go. This announcement from Viz Media came out this week. Being mixed race in Japan, like Kazumi, means facing daily trials of racism, microaggressions, and otherness. This is a journey of resilience, hope, and the search for coexistence. Half is more. Volume 1 by Yoiko Fujimi, releases summer 2026. So, honestly, don't really give a shit. Is this basically the same like woke bullshit that has been ruining the left or ruining the Western entertainment industry? Yeah, pretty much. But I don't give a shit because I know that this kind of manga is not going to be popular. And it gets so here's where we start. Obviously, the response to it from certain people has been a white guy in his mom's basement in Ohio just fell on his knees talking about Japan has fallen and is now a victim of DEI and the woke mind virus or something like that. Perhaps maybe I'll do something like that for members or some shit. But we actually do have some of like the panels and stuff from this one. And I'm gonna be honest, I think the art style kind of looks like shit. So here's where we'll start. So as someone who has read Hanbun Kyodai, the story explores racism and struggle for normalcy faced by multiracial individuals in Japan. The manga has faced resistance from publishers. Fujimi demonstrated that there is a readership for these diverse and honest narratives. So here's the art style. Like, this doesn't exactly look appealing to me. So obviously, the comments of if your story relies solely on its politics and diversity to attract viewers, it probably isn't very good. Naturally, publishers wouldn't want something that looks worse than the average incest dojin and probably worse story by comparison published in their magazine. But here's where I'm going to, rely on a completely different creator's work for this. So here's the autistic deep dive. Thanks, Words of Paradise. So there's a lot to go over, but we'll get into it. There's been a lot of talk about this announcement and whether or not it's woke or DEI manga. I started looking into this and I was not expecting the rabbit hole it took me down. Here's the key information. Half is more. The Japanese title is Hanbun Kyodai and is published on Torch Web. Thank you. I wasn't the only one thinking that. It looks like the worst art you could possibly pull out of Tokyo Revengers. Thank you. Oh. Anyways, published on TorchWeb. TorchWeb is a digital manga site owned by Lead Production Publishing Co. Ltd. TorchWeb describes itself as a space for alternative expression and manga that explore mature, philosophical, or unconventional themes. Covering topics like daily life, relationships, art, aging, and social issues. Some would consider this a red flag, though that's just the beginning. So, sales data. First serialized starting on June 29th, 2022. And it did not get a physical release of Volume 1 until March 28th, 2025. There was never any publicly disclosed sales data, digitally or physically. Instead, we have to rely on Oricon, For those who don't know, Oricon is a major Japanese company that tracks and publishes music, manga, and entertainment sales charts. Oricon tracks weekly manga charts by volume, as well as yearly sales rankings, both digitally and physically. Half is War never once charted with Oricon, which means one can reasonably assume it didn't sell well at all in its native language and market. In reference to other digital storefronts slash tracking, it also never cracked ebook Japan's monthly top sellers. It did get recognized in the awards circuit. Specifically, it won CREA 2025. This translates to CREA Night Owl Manga Award, an arbitrary award for late night reads. The sort of indie hipster stories you'd expect at the artsy upper class scene. These award ceremonies and rankings are funded by CREA themselves, CREA being just an online lifestyle magazine. This is where it gets interesting. Obviously, winning an award like that will, at the very least, boost visibility, though there is nothing to indicate sales increased after winning the award. But when you look into CREA and where the funding comes from, one of the big names that comes up is Cool Japan Fund, a Japanese government supported fund for creative content. The Cool Japan Fund is public-private investment fund and touts pro ESG stances. In fact, on the Cool Japan Fund website under News, there is a section dated May 30th, 2025, that says it published a DE&I promotion policy and harassment prevention policy. What this means is that the manga itself may not be being made slash funded for the explicit reason of promoting woke or DEI sensibilities. The astroturfed buzz behind it from third parties absolutely is. As for Viz Media's involvement in the localization slash Western distribution, Viz is owned by Japanese publishers Shogakukan and Shueisha. So the next step was to see if BlackRock or any of the other usual suspects in terms of DEI investment companies had any stake in Viz, Shogakukan, or Shueisha. And the answer is yes. Marubeni Corporation. Around a year ago, I did a video about Marubeni Corporation, how they are a Japanese DEI investment firm similar to BlackRock and the like in the West, and how did they heavily invest and how they are heavily investing in manga and anime. So how are they related? Marubeni Corporation started a joint venture with Shogakukan and Shueisha in 2022 and has 34% stake in the venture. So yes, there are ties to DEI investments in the Western release of this manga. So it's being localized and distributed by Viz's parent company, who do have ties to at least one DEI investment firm. At the end of the day, here's the short version. A niche manga that didn't sell well wasn't heavily marketed, and whose only claim to fame is winning an award funded by pro ESG slash DEI government funded magazines, is now getting a Western release funded by a company that has ties to a pro ESG slash DEI investment corporations in Japan. I remember a guy I haven't watched it a bit said for years that DEI shit is not in Japan. For years he said it, even when a related BlackRock company bought a publishing company. Now it's starting its bullshit. Look, this is all like pretty heavy data, but there's a little bit more of a nail in the coffin with the next post, which is much shorter and gives us an even better grasp of what's going on. This is totally astroturfed. This manga experienced less than 2 engagements per day on average, has no forum posts, and only 5 ratings. 4 are 1 out of 10s. The decision to provide a Viz release to this manga shows that Viz is not serious and doesn't respect Japan or Japanese culture. Now, this later part here is, I don't know if I care about that, but here we actually have, the data for it. So here on Manga Dex, User ratings. So yeah, this is honestly like with the art style of it that we saw earlier, like this doesn't look appealing. Not even the topic seems that interesting because it's all the same shit that we have seen over and over and over and over again. But the fact that it is getting pushed so heavily and that it's basically been astroturfed to the moon is very, very interesting to me. And I thought we would cover it tonight because, well, it is, in fact, one of those things that's just sort of out there in terms of like content and all that. To be entirely honest, I am not surprised that they would, start to try and push this kind of stuff. Now, I'm not surprised that the manga in and of itself was not very popular. I remember Bleach doing that story with Sato. Anyway. So as long as we are on, the bigotry, racism, all that kind of stuff, might as well add sexism in there, Since we're doing the whole word salad shuffle tonight, why not talk about the next category on the list? Japan apparently hates women. And these topics are going to be a little bit shorter because they're fucking stupid. Muffler tape, I hope you're listening because it involves Don. So, it starts here with I love that new gen series are normalizing giving more focus to female leads. And of course, they have Descaris, Asa, Ruri, and Momo. And this person decided that they were going to respond to this with Momo was meant to be the protagonist, but Shonen Jump wanted a male. Okarun was made. Ichi the Witch's whole thing is trying desperately hard to force a male MC, even when in verse only women have power. We deserve better than this. Jeremy Turner with the $2. Chainsaw Man was fantastic. I'm happy for you, man, but I don't get to see the movie until Sunday, so that kind of sucks for me. Wait, hold on. Oh, fuck. Momo is the main protagonist, and Okarun is a great major support protagonist. Funny enough, it's called Shonen Jump. Shonen equals boy. So this is for a young male audience. Yes, correct. Insofar as this goes too, you see this fucking this community note. You want to know what this says? And by the way, it is impressive that you got the Japanese to community note in English post. Manga has had many female protagonists since ancient times. This post seems to suggest that manga artists in the past looked down on women and have only recently made women protagonists for the sake of gender equality. This is incorrect. Most of them draw what they want to draw and don't draw what they don't want to draw. So it then lists a ton of manga with female protagonists: Princess Knight, Yawara, Sailor Moon, The Rose of Versailles, Attack Number One, Aim for the Ace, Glass Mask, Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, Card Captor Sakura. Like, holy shit, you just got obliterated. This is one of the things. It just proves that these people are like the retarded kind. And yeah, I gotta agree with Blazamon on this one here. Like, this dude's just like, when Japan sends a community note, they full send. They came with fucking receipts. Female protagonists are not new. This is not something that is just now popping up. And these are all good characters. Like, I do like these characters. But acting like this is some sort of like female empowerment thing, or like you don't see enough women in this, fucking stupid. You're literally looking at shonen manga and complaining that the shonen manga does not have female protagonists. Huh. What, just blowing from Stupid Town? But let's have some fun for the rest of the night, because now we are on to the miscellaneous stuff. And I think I'm actually going to start here with this one. So, given the state of One Punch Man, the director has officially deleted his Twitter. So the director of One Punch Man has made an official statement before deleting his account earlier this morning. Hey, LJM, how you doing? Anyway, I have some rather unfortunate news. There are a few people among my followers who are pretending to be allies, but are actually engaging in rage baiting. So I've decided to delete my account. Their actions, such as taking my statements out of context, trying to elicit comments that violate NDAs, or turning them into profit, are unacceptable and cannot be overlooked. I've always done my best for the fans with utmost sincerity, but I've come to the conclusion that continuing in this environment is untenable for this project. It's always the genuine fans who end up suffering the most. I cannot forgive those who tarnish the staff's honor or exploit the struggles of the creators for profit through hate. Therefore, I will also be deleting Shinpai Nagai's account entirely. I will not create any account in the future either. I cannot overlook the actions that degrade the work itself, so I ask for your understanding. Honestly, this is taking a toll on my mental health, and it only brings negatives to the work, the staff, and the original creators. But such despicable behavior is unforgivable. To the fans who have been truly kind to me, I want to express my gratitude and apologies. It was truly enjoyable. So when it comes to One Punch Man, I don't blame the director or even the staff of the anime for doing things poorly. What I've been thinking is the issue here is that there was either some sort of time or money issue that was going on with the production, and the director just didn't have the resources or even the schedule to actually make this a good production. So he had to do what he had to do. I don't necessarily think it is his fault for trying to do the best job he could with with the deck stacked against him, basically. And it's sad to see that like, I can't just be like, oh wow, the anime is good just because I feel bad for the guy. But in this case, it genuinely does feel like there's just like, it feels like there's something that was incredibly wrong with this production. But that said, like, I don't want anyone to harass people. I don't want anyone to do anything stupid. I'm just saying. Again, I don't even think it's just that he did bad work. I think it's a situation where he was put in a losing position with either not enough time or not enough money to do what he wanted to do with it. Because if the latest action sequence, like the action sequence at the end of episode 2, shows anything, they do have talent working on it. They can get stuff done in a good way. They didn't. Why? Likely because of budget. They were likely stiffed on the budget. And since they were stiffed on the budget, there was also probably a little bit of crunch. Anyway, let's talk about something a little bit happier. Like Makaine beating out Solo Leveling in the awards. So Makaine Too Many Losing Heroines has received the prestigious Best Work Award for the 2024-2025 season at the New Type Anime Awards, eclipsing prominent titles like Solo Leveling. Solo Leveling Season 2 attained a 4th place ranking in the Best Work category, but did not secure a 1st place finish in any other category this year. Yes, effectively. The people that were funding the project are to blame. But I just wanted to point this out, that at least Japan still has good taste, even if the Crunchyroll Awards don't. Someone else who doesn't have good taste in this. Let's talk about this, and then we'll get into a couple of articles. So we have Anime Outsider with the fuck you mean there is a manga about forced breeding, rape, and sex slavery. It looks like this, and it's a shonen, a regular ass sold on store shelves, marketed to high schoolers. Shonen, Japan, what the actual hell, dude? And it's Reincarnation Coliseum, which, by the way, is a manga that I do actually really like. And I guess we don't need to go into those interactions too terribly much. Yeah, I've seen that one. The chicks are hot. Disgusting. Where? Exactly. Like this is genuinely like I'm not even like disappointed in reading that manga. Like it's actually like somewhat interesting. I like the stories. I like the story. I like the art style for it. The chicks are hot. The chicks are hot. The chicks have like really, really awesome titties. Anyway, freaking out about it like it's some huge problem or whatever is just kind of funny. But so I've had these articles for a little while, and I decided I would probably just cover them here for the night. So let's start. It's called Reincarnation Coliseum. There actually are manga volumes out for it. To avoid it, sure, yes. Absolutely must avoid.
理想的な柔らかさ、俺の美意識に間違いはなかった。何をなさっておいでですか。検品だ、検品。
All right. Anime tourism isn't the problem. Elitism is. Anime isn't dead, but some fans are. Every community has grown eventually. Every community that grows eventually forgets what it feels like to be small. Anime used to be a secret handshake, something whispered about in school hallways, traded on burned CDs, and defended against ridicule. It was a culture built by outcasts who found meaning in stories that the mainstream ignored. Now that same culture fills stadiums, dominates streaming platforms, and trends across social media daily. But with that success came a strange bitterness. The very people who once begged for anime to be accepted are now the ones resenting how popular it's become. What they complain that anime isn't what it used to be, that the fandom is full of tourists, and that newcomers are ruining the community. What they don't realize is that this gatekeeping says more about them than it does about anyone else. The word tourist in the anime world doesn't mean someone traveling to Japan or visiting anime landmarks. It's a new kind of label, one meant to draw a line between real fans and fake ones. An anime tourist is someone who only watches what's trending. The meme-fueled algorithm boosted titles like Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, Demon Slayer, and Attack on Titan. They follow the hype cycles instead of studio lineups, scroll through edits instead of reading manga, and often disappear as quickly as they arrive. Some jumped in during the pandemic boom when anime became more accessible than ever. Others treat the fandom like a fashion statement, an aesthetic to match their playlists and social media feeds. To veterans, these fans feel like intruders, tourists in a land they never helped build. The frustration didn't come out of nowhere. For many older fans, anime used to be hard to find and even harder to love publicly. They remember late nights waiting for episodes to load, trading bootlegs on blank discs, and getting laughed at for liking cartoons. To them, watching anime wasn't just entertainment, it was identity. And now with anime everywhere, that identity feels diluted. When everyone can claim it, what does it mean to have been there from the start? But this defensiveness has curdled into elitism. Social media has become flooded with fans who dismiss newcomers as tourists, shallow, clout-chasing viewers who only care about what's cool that season. It's a sentiment wrapped in superiority. If you only watch what's popular, you're not a real fan. Some go further, calling others fake weebs, or treating those who dislike certain tropes, like lollies or over-sexualized characters, as moral outsiders. What was once a haven for weird, passionate people has started to mirror the judgmental mainstream it once rebelled against. The dangers of this mindset isn't just that it's cruel, it's that it's hypocritical. Every fan starts somewhere. And most of those somewheres are mainstream. The same people who now mock anime tourists once began with gateway hits like Naruto, Bleach, and Death Note. The only difference between them and the so-called tourists is that they had time and interest to keep going. Shaming those for not being as deep into the fandom doesn't make someone more authentic, it makes them forgetful. This kind of elitism grows from nostalgia. Many older fans look back at the early days with rose-colored glasses when the community was smaller and the shows felt grittier and the passion felt pure. But the purity came from limitation. Anime wasn't hard to find because it was better back then. It was hard to find because it was inaccessible. Being an anime fan used to mean being willing to dig up or import or pirate because the industry barely acknowledged you. What fans miss isn't quality, it's exclusivity. And that nostalgia often comes with jealousy. Fans who built their entire identities around being outsiders now see younger people enjoying anime freely and feel pushed aside. It's a toys mine mentality, the urge to hold tighter the moment someone else wants to play. But that reaction betrays the community's original purpose. The dream was always to make anime accepted, to make it accessible, to let others see its beauty. That dream came true, and some people don't know how to handle it. And don't worry, we will get into some of the bullshit that's going on here. There's a key difference between being an experienced fan and being an elitist. The experienced fan uses their time in the fandom to share knowledge, recommending older series, explaining the artistry, helping others dive deeper. The elitist uses their experience as a weapon, belittling newcomers, scoffing at trends, and treating fandom as a hierarchy. The first keeps anime alive, the second keeps it locked away. The truth is that anime tourism is a symptom of success, not decline. The fact that the people who never would have touched anime a decade ago now call themselves fans is a victory. It means anime has crossed borders, languages, and generations. The tourists who come for the hype might not stay for the long haul, but some will, and those who do will carry the culture forward the same way the early fans once did. The community doesn't need fewer anime tourists, it needs better role models. Instead of sneering at newcomers for not knowing enough, fans should help them find what makes the medium special. The more people who care about anime, even casually, the more support its creators and studios get, and the more stories can be told. Gatekeeping, it doesn't protect anime, it isolates it. Anime tourism isn't killing culture, elitism is. Every fan who enjoys because of a meme or viral scene is proof that anime still resonates with people and it still captures imagination and emotion in the way it always has. To turn these people away is forgetting the community's own history. We were all tourists once. No. The goal was never to keep anime secret. It was to see how far it could go. So the whole beef I have with this article is effectively that the writer wants to completely ignore the big issue. We like in here they completely misunderstand exactly what tourists kind of are. Because we were all tourists once. No. Because a tourist is someone who actually comes in and wants to change what's going on. That's where you're getting your interpretation of elitism from, is people reacting to those who come into the fandom and act like they know better than everyone and try to, you sort of dismiss it as like, oh, well, they just don't like this trope. They're actively saying that they think you are a bad person for enjoying anime with that trope. I feel like the elitism that you're complaining about is just people not wanting to get shit on for liking something still. Because whether you like it or not, a lot of anime is still considered dirty or inappropriate or stupid. The popular ones get popular because, well, they're the acceptable ones. They're the normie ones. And what the author here has done is confuse normie with tourist. Everyone was once a normie. They were a newbie. They were someone who wasn't very deep into anime. The normies, there's not inherently a problem with being a normie. It just means you're new to something. Being a tourist generally means, when we're talking about fandom, that you are coming in trying to change everything because it is popular now and you want to enjoy it because it's popular, but you hate certain parts of it and want to change those things so that it's more comfortable for you. And that last part there is exactly the thing. The problem is a lot of retards are now into anime and try to change it and force their beliefs on me. So yes, anime tourism is the problem. Elitism has nothing to do with it. Defending your fandom and the things you like from people who want to come in and change the things that have kind of made a unique identity for that thing is not elitism. And that is, in essence, why gatekeeping is a good thing. It preserves the good parts of a series. It preserves the things in a series that give it its identity. There. And so it's a retarded fucking work of bleh. It is so stupid. And it all comes down to the author clearly doesn't understand the difference between elitism and people just protecting themselves from rabid assholes. They also don't understand the difference between a normie and a tourist. I have no problem with someone who comes in and only likes shonen battle anime. Fine. I don't care. It's really not for me to judge if that's what you like. So long as you're not out here talking about how we need to ban or stop doing or whatever, a bunch of stuff. Then we're cool. Then we're not cool, I should say. But that being said, not even a month prior, this same person This is why I wanted to do these articles. Not even a month prior, this same person also wrote this article. Fan service is a necessity for the medium to thrive, like it or not. The same writer. Fan service. Just saying the phrase is enough to spark an online flame war. Some fans defend it as part of anime's DNA, while others deride it as cheap, unnecessary, or even harmful. The truth, as often cases, is somewhat in the middle. But here's the reality. Anime has always dealt with sexuality and adult themes, and pretending otherwise isn't just inaccurate, it's counterproductive. When handled with intention, fan service can enhance storytelling, add depth to characters, and reflect human experiences that are both awkward and intimate. Rejecting it outright has become increasingly popular among a generation already struggling with social anxiety around intimacy. Risk stripping anime of cultural nuance, and that has defined it for decades. Anime has never shied away from the adult themes, from the psychological trauma explored in Neon Genesis Evangelion to the mature romance in Nana or Inuyasha. Sexuality and relationships have always been part of the medium. Fan service, whether in the form of playful humor, character vulnerability, or even tension in battle scenes, has long served as a way to both humanize and complicate characters. Of course, not all fan service is created equal. Some is clumsy, gratuitous, and feels tacked on for shock value. But some is deliberate, woven into the plot in a way that heightens character development or adds stakes to a narrative. Dismissing it wholesale ignores the diversity of how it's been used and how it can function as as a meaningful storytelling device. Yeah, so I think a lot of people do react overly so to a lot of fan service scenes. I myself have talked about how I do think there are times where like fan service just isn't like good. Sure, it's nice to have titties, but honestly, I don't understand the mentality of I'm gonna watch the anime just because it has a good pair of titties. Like you have to have something a little bit more than that in order to keep me engaged with it. But that doesn't mean I want it completely gotten out of the genre altogether. If I don't like an anime, I'm just not gonna watch it. In recent years, criticism of fan service has become louder and more mainstream. Social media has amplified voices that frame it as outdated or inappropriate, and studios have taken note. Anime, once brimming with suggestive humor and provocative tension, now often opts for safer, sterilized narrative meant to avoid controversy. This cultural shift isn't happening in isolation. It's a sliding scale, but even I couldn't get through Beihei Neko. Exactly. Just because I feel like people get lost in the sauce on this debate where like you either have to be like completely anti fan service or you have to be completely pro fan service. And I'm just here like if it makes sense within the story, if it's done well and you actually have a good series at the base of it, then yeah, it's good. But if your whole selling point is just try and distract me with titties, I'm sorry, that's not really going to work. I can find better versions somewhere out there. I won't say where, just somewhere out there. This cultural shift isn't happening in isolation. Studios and surveys suggest that younger generations are increasingly anxious about intimacy. Rising social isolation, digital first lifestyle, and a climate of hypercritical online discourse have contributed to a climate where many people are more comfortable avoiding depictions of sex altogether. That discomfort is understandable, but it has consequences. When audiences demand anime scrub itself clean of adult themes, they're asking for a medium to deny part of the human experience. Art is supposed to make us uncomfortable at times. It's supposed to push boundaries, not just soothe them. The best uses of fan service are never just about the surface. They're about what the moment reveals. Consider when a character's composure slips in an awkward situation, showing vulnerability that strengthens their bond with another. Or when suggestive scenes underscore the intensity of a relationship, heightening the stakes and the drama to come. The battle heavy shonen series that show how sexuality and physicality can influence combat dynamics, character motivations, and audience investment. At its most effective, fan service can be funny, poignant, and even tragic. It can humiliate characters by showing sides of them that they might otherwise remain hidden. Rejecting that entirely robs anime of one of its most distinctive strengths, its ability to embrace extremes, both emotional and aesthetic, in ways Western media often avoids. It isn't an argument of uncritical acceptance of all fan service. Anime still struggles with lazy tropes, objectification, and tonal whiplash when fan service is handled poorly. Those issues deserve critique. But the answer isn't censorship by culture, nor the growing trend of blanket rejection. The answer is discernment. We should be asking whether the fan service truly serves a story, the character, or the emotional truth of the scene. When it does, it deserves appreciation, not dismissal. Anime has always thrived on its ability to explore themes that other mediums shy away from, pending that sexuality has no place in it, or pretending that sexuality has no place in it. Not only misinterprets its history, but also denies audiences the chance to engage with stories that reflect real human complexity. Anime is bold because it doesn't always play safe. It's emotional, dramatic, awkward, and sometimes messy. That's what makes it resonate. Removing sexuality and adult themes out of fear or discomfort risks sanding down the edges that make it unique. As more anime crosses into mainstream Western markets, there will always be tension over what is appropriate. But instead of sanitizing the medium, we should embrace its range. Fan service can be tasteless and it can be transformative. The difference is intention. If the next generation of fans learn to reject it entirely, not because of poor execution, but out of anxiety about the intimacy itself, anime risks losing part of its cultural soul. And that's something worth fighting against. So when it comes to fan service, I don't think it's really necessary to be, like I said, all for it or all against it. The article lays out a couple of things, and I kind of like agree and disagree with some of it. It starts talking about like objectification or whatever. They're characters. They are objects anyway. And we're not going to complain about the myriad of ways that we call empowering for women to objectify themselves by selling their bodies as a commodity for the internet to consume. But again, if you want to go to extremes and say that literally everything either has to be this or that, you have reduced the whole thing to a dichotomy. There are a bunch of shades of gray between black and white. Okay, like a good example of when I can actually use two very ecchi anime. So Hands Off, Kotasashi-kun, I've actually really liked because I've liked the characters. I think they've been done well, and the way it does, the fan service stuff, it doesn't interfere with the writing. And since it was brought up, Beihei Neko is shit because it literally only does anything to go out of its way to have our main character groped by a penis monster that shoots white goo everywhere. Because the blacksmith can't figure out how to make a fucking sword. And if you want to try and say that there are worse fantasy anime every season, no, there are not. Occasionally you'll get one that is worse. like Hero without a class, but or Fruit Master. But Beihei Neko is really scraping the bottom. And just because it has titties doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's bad. I've said this multiple times, but fan service really should be that garnish over the top of the whole thing. That fan service really should be that garnish over the top of the whole thing that just adds another little thing that you enjoy. It shouldn't be the whole goddamn dish. Okay? Like, I like cilantro on my tacos, but if you hand me a piece of bread with a pile of cilantro on it, I'm going to slap the shit out of you. That being said, we're going to call it here for the night. Or about an hour and a half. And I'm out of topics to cover, which is wild because I thought I had a ton tonight. But so be it. And the fan service in Frieren is so well done. Like, tasty. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Again, sorry about not posting anything. I have been very busy. I am doing everything I can to try and, get stuff sorted out on one end so that I can then go and get back to making some sort of like weekly videos. That said, again, you all have a good night. I will most likely see you next on Animated on Saturday. And I guess since it's only appropriate, it is time to hit the play outro and then stream button and let Frieren show us out. So, say goodbye.